Hey, good morning. Welcome to Erie Shores Prepping. I'm your host, Greg. Thank you so much for liking, subscribing, and leaving your comments. I certainly appreciate it. Subscribing does help this channel grow. A lot of stuff going on around the world. A lot of people, not understanding what's going on, why it's going on. So I'm going to attempt, in my opinion, the Trump strategy and what's going on. For those people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome right now, and I've already removed several, just pass this one by. All right, it'll make you go crazy, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so let's start on this, and I jotted down some notes. Let's get busy. First off, Trump removed Maduro out of Venezuela for numerous reasons. He did it because he wanted to return to the Monroe Doctrine, which former presidents have completely ignored and allowed communists creep into our southern hemisphere. If you don't know what the Monroe Doctrine is, go back to school and look it up. I don't have time. He removed Maduro under the threat because he claimed, because the grand jury indicted him, Maduro is a drug dealer, which he is, on a massive scale. He's a murderer on massive scale, as well as his wife. And the person that replaced Maduro, Delcy, I don't know what her last name is, Delcy, is also being indicted by the grand jury. So she is on thin ice. She is also in charge of the secret police that ride around on motorcycles and do executions and arrests and kidnappings and threats and everything else. So why she's still in power, I do not know, but other than she's playing ball right now with the United States. The exiled president-elect Maria Chado, I think is her name, I'm not for sure. She is supposed to be going back to Venezuela in secret to rally the people, the support. We will see what happens there, but in the meantime, by removing Maduro, Trump also removes oil to Cuba, which is a long-time communist nation, removing military and monetary support. That is also going to collapse very shortly. And on this point, I truly hope those communist dictators face the firing squad for the executions that they did, and all the idiot people here in the United States, especially the college students who wore Che Rivera t-shirts celebrating that mass murderer, that serial killer, needs to go back to school and rethink their education. But that's the people here who don't understand who these communists really are. The problem with the Cuban situation and Cuba collapsing is they have generations so ingrained in the communist doctrine, it may be very, very difficult to change that island nation anytime soon. I am hoping that with the flip in Venezuela as well as Cuba, which will collapse, people will repatriate their home countries. The Venezuelans and Cubans in Florida and other southern states will repatriate their nations and help spread or initiate the idea of democracy and republics, and show people what freedom actually is that have gone so long without it. Cuba does not have a lot to offer. However, by removing that communist dictatorship, it removes a warm water port from Russia and China. It can also grow economically into one of the most viable tourist destinations because it's going to rely on that. It will modernize, revitalize within a decade and become a top tourist destination if the people of Cuba embrace that idea of becoming economically viable instead of relying on the government for nothing. They have no power, no health care or anything else because of what's going on. And I'm hoping people in Venezuela as well as Cuba come to realize that these communist dictators have gotten wealthy off of all the subsidies the United Nations and other countries have given to them, and fleeing the country with billions in foreign bank accounts has already been discovered, and Maduro has his assets frozen, and so he cannot use those to hire the most corrupt, powerful lawyers in D.C. So both in Venezuela and Cuba, the threat of civil war retaliation is very real. Hopefully we can keep that under control through negotiations and such, but there will be retaliation. People are going to remember who was killed, who was imprisoned, who was tortured, and they will retribution, and I can't blame them. Next, the Honduran people voted out the communists out of their government for a majority of it. They want their freedom back. Trump influence along the southern hemisphere is growing, and people are seeing what that can be like and what it can do for their economy, and they're choosing freedom over dictatorship and communists. Communists always promise everything, and then they come back and say, well, you really don't need that, so we're going to take that away from you. Then once they start down that, they're going to say, you don't need that perk, we're going to take that away from you, and so on until you have nothing. But students don't understand that here in the United States. Now, going back, and by the way, we do have a small group of military that just landed in Ecuador to fight the drug lords that have taken over that country by request from the Ecuadorian government. So now we do have troops in harm's way in Ecuador to fight the drug trade down there. The Pentagon has not released how many troops for obvious reasons, but they are on the ground, and I expect them to be like the recon team or something like that to destroy the drug lords and so on, so keep an eye on that one. Next, the big news is Iran. Stay with me, folks, please. Iran. Now, I don't really buy this Iran was going to attack us, so even though we've been at war since 1973, when Iran took American hostages and then killed Marines in Beirut. They were behind that as well by supplying them with bombs and everything else there to kill our Marines in Beirut. So Iran has been at war with us. And what a surprise, the liberals have done nothing about it except pay them money, dropping pallets of cash to these mullahs, the ayatollahs, that have killed American citizens, have threatened American citizens, have slaughtered their own people by the thousands in order to maintain power. I think one of the reasons why is that since we now have a conviction of 2 Iranians that were sent here to assassinate Trump, and I think Thomas Crooks, the one in Pennsylvania, quite possibly was linked to the Iranian hit squad. I don't know anybody that has 5 phones. I don't know anybody that has the 5 phones that are heavily encrypted that cannot be broken. And you notice all that information was shut down. So I think Crooks might have been on the payroll of Iran, and they still haven't explained how his parents, and it is their right, obtained one of the most expensive law firms as a defense from Washington, D.C. They haven't explained that yet. I don't know how you can pay for that defense at $3,500 to $5,000 an hour. So I think one of the reasoning is to Trump to get back at Iran. They wanted to kill him, and so he decided to take them out. Not only that, but I've been talking about the threat of nuclear bombs. Iran did have that. They are discovering more of it hidden. The ballistic missile program, as I have talked about, was very capable of putting nuclear warheads on that ballistic missile that could have separate payloads, in other words, blow up, but drop multiple nuclear bombs over an area, destroying Israel. I fully see that happening, and Israel took preemptive strikes, as is their right. And I think the United States is saying, okay, we've had enough of this, with the threatening of all the nations around them by supplying Hamas, by supplying Hezbollah and the Houthis with arms and drones to attack their neighbors and being a threat. They also were a major supplier of attack drones to Russia, who is using those in the Ukraine war. So a benefit of that is wiping out the ballistic missile program, the nuclear attack program, and going after that. Pardon me. By taking out Iran, they are also limiting the oil flow to North Korea, China, Yemen, and other countries that bought oil from Iran. Let's see, I have plenty of notes here, so a second. Now, with Iran being taken out, like I said, Hamas has lost a lot of money, has lost a lot of arms, resupply, as well as Hezbollah, and that's why Israel is fighting two fronts, not only in Iran, but also in Lebanon, destroying the remainder of Hezbollah, which at one point had surrendered and said, we're not going to do anything. But with the attack on Iran, they have decided to fire a few missiles into Israel, and Israeli armed forces, the IDF, is taking out the Hezbollah leadership once again and destroying their ammo supplies. Yemen has been very quiet, although they did attack a tanker carrying coal, and they did destroy that one. So I look for Yemen to become a wasteland very quickly, as well as Saudi Arabia attacking them. Iran has launched attacks against Saudi Arabia, UAE, to draw them in. However, it's more along religious lines based on their ethnicity. Iran is Shia, and the other ones are Sunni. So a little bit of religious conflict there. But Iran overall is a bad actor. And taking that out has massive consequences all around there. The Ayatollahs must be completely destroyed, wiped out, removed from any positions of authority in order for democracy to grow and spread. And at one point, the Iranian people, the Persians, were great friends to the West. And they are very westernized, speak English very well, and can be great allies in that nation. If we can turn that, not only will that rob Russia and China from warm ports, but also control the area in there with the Strait of Hormuz and everything else like that. So it's very strategic. It also isolates North Korea as well. So let's keep that in mind. Now, some of the consequences. What if China decides to invade Taiwan at this point, with the fleet being involved, the United States fleet being involved with Iran? Could China suddenly say, well, can the United States take on Iran? Can they take on Venezuela? Can they take on Cuba, meaning us, the Americans, and still come to the aid of Taiwan? That is a very real possibility, and she may be contemplating that right now while America is involved with Iran. Keep an eye on that. Look very closely. This conflict is costing the American taxpayer $1 billion a day reported. And if you just look at your 401k or follow the stock markets like I'm doing, all you see is red and you're like, what in the world is going on? We need this to stop. The price of crude oil is above $100 a barrel, hovering between 110 and 100. You see that reflected at the gas pumps. Trump says this is temporary. I don't know. So we're going to see what's happening. Iran keeps shooting missiles and drones at the countries trying to bring more into conflict, trying to create World War III to bring in more countries and bring about chaos and everything else. We'll see what happens there. Keep an eye on Taiwan. 7 American soldiers, as of this posting, have passed away. My condolences to the family. Let's keep them in our thoughts and prayers. I can't say enough about our military. They've proven their excellence beyond all belief, and let's hope this conflict ends and things get back to the way they should be. Peace and democracy, and never mind slaughtering 30,000 of your own people like the Ayatollahs did because you disagreed with them. Another fallout from this is increased terrorist activity. We saw this with the war with Afghanistan, with infiltrators coming in, running people down with trucks, vans, whatever. We saw that here in New York. I'm not in New York, but we saw that here take place in New York. We have now seen 2 incidences, one saying wearing the property of Ayatollah, shooting and killing people. He assumed room temperature within minutes. We now have 2 idiots throwing bombs in New York City, trying to kill people protesting the state of Islam in New York City. We're seeing that across this nation. Be advised on that. That is going to increase. Inflation will step up, ramp up, because in order to pay for $1 billion a day war, the Fed has to print dollars. That will decrease the value of the dollar, buying less. Right now, people that have money are investing in long-term bonds as a shelter to grow their wealth. The stock market is too volatile for them at this time. That's why you are seeing gold and silver drop, because right now the dollar is strengthening. That means gold will drop, silver will drop. Long-term high-yield bonds are increasing. People are exiting the stock market. I'm not particularly going to do that, although I am watching my amount drop dramatically. So we're going to see. War is never good. Sometimes it is necessary, but this is what I believe the purpose of this happening in Iran, Venezuela, Cuba. We'll see what the fallout is. Hopefully, it will be freedom and democracy for those people who seek it. Thank you for staying with me this long. Let me know your opinion. I do not believe that Trump is the Antichrist. Give me a break. There has been so much TDS that they're saying he's the Antichrist, he's bringing about this, he's bringing about that. Listen, there's a lot that has to happen before anything like the arrival of the Antichrist. And it hasn't occurred yet. So if you read your scriptures, especially in Matthew 20 through the end of the chapter, you will understand what our Lord Christ Jesus is saying. And rumors of war and pestilence and famine and everything else is commonplace. But there will be special activity happening, and it will get increasingly worse. So the Antichrist doesn't make his appearance until you go to the book of Revelation and things are really bad, and hopefully those of us that are saved will not be here to see that happen. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing to this channel. I hope this clarifies little things for me. Let me know down in the comments. Greg out.